topic today is what is pure love. This session is made up of 3 parts. The first part of it, we will talk about briefly what is the problem facing us with love. Why are we talking about this topic at all? The second portion will talk about a theoretical analysis of the problem. And the third part talks about what is the practical aspect, what is it to do with action. So let's start with what is the problem facing us today. There is a plethora of deteriorating relationships. In every sphere of life we find this. Whether it is between spouses, whether it is between communities, nations, whether it is two brothers fighting in the business that they have inherited, everywhere you look at it, there seems to be a deterioration in relationships. In America, I'm told the divorce rate is 70%. These are the developed countries, those who are far progressed and far advanced, and we are of course advancing in that direction. So we have got to learn from our predecessors. Let's get the good things, not let's get the bad things. It's the communal harm, disharmony. Communities are fighting against each other, killing each other. What is going on? Everywhere you find this. There was a time in India when there was what was known as the joint family system. 50 people stayed under one roof and they got along with each other. They lived in relative harmony. Surely all the 50 people could not have the same level of intelligence, the same level of unselfishness, the same level of values. Impossible. Some were productive, some were unproductive, but they managed to somehow live together. Now, as the years passed, this joint family concept changed. People could live, like those 3 grandfathers living together with their children and their children and their children. This situation went away, and eventually it was grandfather, his children, and his children, grandchildren. These people lived together, and this was called one line, was called joint family. Nowadays, when you say joint family, what do you mean? A husband and wife live with his parents, or maybe her parents, but then 4 of them live in the house, and they call this the joint family, 4 people living together. In another 20 years, when husband and wife live together, they'll call it joint family. Still together. It is amazing how it has become impossible for anyone to live with anyone. The only people we can deal with now is friends, because friends stay in their own house and they don't bother us. At maximum they'll poke you on Facebook or something. That's it. We can handle that much, no more. This is the problem facing us today. So now what is the solution? I can't give you any solutions, but we can analyze the problem. The way of philosophy is not to dole out solutions, but to try and understand the process. What is going on? Why is this failing relationship? Why can't 2 tennis stars just play together? What's the problem here? Everywhere, you look anywhere, this problem exists. So we have to look at it from a holistic point of view, in the sense, let's understand what is happening. Now Vedanta says what is happening over here is that there is a basic misunderstanding of the concept of love. That is why we're going to discuss today what is pure love. So obviously we're going to do what is pure love, and therefore what is impure love. Impure love, we're going to give it a name. We're going to call it attachment. So our real discussion is, what is the difference between this love and attachment? In Sanskrit it is prem and sang. Prem is glorified. You must have love, but you must not have attachment. Now to our ears it sounds the same. What do you mean have love and not have attachment? So let's just understand this concept. We'll give it a reasonable amount of time just to understand so much. What is love and what is attachment? What is pure love, which is love, and what is impure love, which is attachment. So what's love? Let's start with that. On a good note, we'll start. Love means universal affection, universal identification, loving everybody. That feeling of oneness you have across the board. all humans, all creatures, all animals, all plants. It's a feeling of universal oneness. It is the kind of feeling that you have pertaining, as an example, just to understand what this means, how you understand that your body, the whole body is you, right? There are parts of the body which are important, your eyes, very important. Your toes may not be so important to you. So there are different degrees of importance, there are different functions each part is playing. Some are decorative, purely decorative. You never turn around to your hair and say, what do you do for me? It's purely decorative. And yet if it goes, it hurts your heart. Different functions, different things, but you understand it is all me. A loving person similarly understands this whole world, different functions, different degrees of uses, different values, but it is all the one self pervading it. There is no reason for me to dislike another person because of something, whatever. Now, the opposite of this is attachment. Attachment means a preferential relationship. I like somebody and I don't like the others, or I don't care about them, or they don't enter into my scheme of things. Preferential relationships. These are my friends, those are my enemies, this is my family, all the others I don't care about. This kind of relating, preferential relationships, are known as attachment. To which the most likely question you're going to ask is, how is it possible? Why are you saying that we don't love our family? Why is that not considered love? Of course I love my children. What are you talking? If you're appalled to hear this, I don't blame you. I was appalled when I first heard it. No, this is supposed to mean I have to love the whole world. Not that my family if I love, not counted. Weird. But if you try and analyze it, just think. If I love X and I do not love Y, there is some reason that I love X. What is that reason? That X is catering to me either materially or physically or emotionally or intellectually. I am getting something from X which I am not getting from Y. So when I claim to be loving X, whoever it is I love, who am I really loving? Only myself. Because if this X were to stop giving me these things, what will I do? I will hate that person. I will dump him. So any preferential relationship is no love at all. How much love do I have in my system? As much as I love the person whom I love the least. Because that much is across the board. Whoever I love the least, that gives me an indication of what is the love in my heart. True love is what Christ had. One of the most beautiful examples of love is what Christ had. Can you imagine? They have put nails in his hands. They have put him up on a cross with robbers and thieves. Why? Because he went and he gave a few lectures talking about the greatness of new knowledge. For this, for trying his best to serve society, this is what he was doing. That time, when he is in physically excruciating pain, when mentally he has been rejected by the very people he served, intellectually he has been abused, he has been put up with robbers. At that time, what does he say? Hair stand on end when you remember those words. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. How can under that circumstance he think about their welfare? He didn't say, you guys were troubling me, you wait, see what my father will do to you. Your karma will take care of you. He didn't say, he said protect them, forgive them, they don't understand. They haven't understood I'm here for them, working for their welfare. Protect them. That's his only thought. His only thought when he's going through this horrible pain is protect them. This is love. Versus us. Somebody doesn't wish us in the morning, we say, who does he think he is? This is the wide difference in this capacity. It's very, very commonly said, na, what is love? Anyone will tell you, what is love? Unconditional love. What is this unconditional? It is, if it is genuinely unconditional, it will be universal. There is no unconditional love otherwise. The moment you fix it somewhere, you put a condition. My family, my friends, I fixed it somewhere. So true love has to be universal. Not true love, love has to be universal. If it is not universal, it is attachment, it is no love at all. So how does love come about? Love comes about as a result of spiritual growth. As you grow up as a human being, this becomes the most natural thing. You feel one with everybody. How does attachment come about? Attachment comes about through a constant thought flow. You start thinking about something and you get attached to that thing. So the Bhagavad Gita says, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa. Pumsa, the man Dhyayato, thinks Vishayan, on objects. Sangaste Upajayate. Sangha Upajayate. Sangha is born. How is Sangha born? Just think about something. All these attachments which are so precious to us, we hold so dear to our heart. You know what it is? Just a repetitive thought flow. And if you don't believe me, when you leave this hall, hopefully at 7:45, not right now. When you go down on the street, there are stones. Pick up a stone. Anyone. Think about it for 1 week. Suddenly that stone will start becoming important to you. If anyone touches your stone, you say, don't touch my stone. How did this come about? Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa. You think of any object. You think, and an attachment is born. And then that attachment, because it's so big in your own mind, it becomes very important in your life. And what is it? Just a repetitive thought flow. Just nothing. If you hadn't thought of that object, you had thought of some other object, you would have been that attached to that thing. It's frightening if you think about it. All the things that I hold most dear to me are nothing but me just thinking about them over and over again. It need not have any intrinsic value. To which you may say, so what's your problem? We'll think about whatever we want. We'll get attached to whatever we want. What's your problem? What are you calling us here and talking about all these things for? For that we have to analyze the consequences of this kind of behavior. Consequences of love I don't think I need to talk about. But consequences of attachment, really need to think about them. The first thing that happens when we get attached to something is that we cannot obtain that object. The first thing that happens when we get attached to something is we cannot obtain that object. Ivan Lendl was dying to win Wimbledon, he didn't. Chetan Chauhan was dying to get a century, he didn't. That is why they call it the nervous 90s. What is nervous 90s? What happened in the 90s that wasn't there in the 70s and the 40s and the 20s? You see the ball less and you see that century more. Whenever you get attached to something, you are not able to obtain it. This is very easy to understand. You look at any Hindi film, Bollywood also. Hollywood, Bollywood, same thing they show. One boy there will be some chap. He likes some girl. What will he go and do? This is a comic scene. He will constantly go and trip her, irritate her, bug her, drop something on her. The moment you get attached to something, you cannot get that object. You must have also experienced whenever something became very important, it seems to go far away. Why? Mind has gotten attached. Mind has gotten attached means you have begun to get agitated. When you begin to get agitated, your intellect cannot think, you cannot do anything properly. Simple thing. Suppose a lady makes a wonderful cake and her fame for making that cake has spread so much. Today, you know, who is coming to have that cake? Hrithik Roshan. That cake, if she makes for him, that poor fellow will have to eat spoon. It is very difficult. The moment you long for it, die for it, attach to it, you make it difficult for yourself to get it. First thing that happens when we get attached is we cannot give him the opportunity. Second thing that happens when we get attached is somehow we gain it because other people were more attached, not because of our virtue. But we somehow got it. We can never enjoy it. You can never enjoy anything you're attached to. Just imagine if you went to a hotel, you saw that that hotel had a nice white carpet. You loved the carpet and you made inquiries and you found out where did this carpet come from. And you went to that store, foreign store, you bought that carpet, you placed it in your house. Now what? Now the doorbell rings. When you open the door, frankly, what do you look at first? His face or his shoes? When you get attached to something, you cannot enjoy it. That's why most mothers are very happy when children go to grandparents. Oh, they've gone today, I'm so relaxed. Your children, you love your children, what are you so relaxed about? Very happy that the children have gone. Until for some time, then I'm missing them. Then Facebook. Missing kids at grannies. Madness going on over here. Second thing that happens when we get attached to something is we can't obtain it. If somehow, first is we can't obtain it. If we somehow obtain it, cannot enjoy it. Third thing that happens when we get attached to something is we become very unfair to others. We seem to forget that other people exist and other people have their rights. A teacher with her child in the class and other children, what is that feeling in her that wants her child to get some undeserved marks? We become very unfair to others. Because my community is hurt, I don't mind killing any amount of people who have done nothing to my community. You've forgotten that other people have their rights. Where is this coming from? I am attached to my community and therefore everybody else can die. When we get attached to something, we become very unfair to others. When we get attached to something, our vision with reference to that thing gets very blurred. It's an incredible thing. If you're attached to something, you can't see it. It's difficult, you fall in love with somebody, then what? He's so nice. She is so nice. Everything gets a positive override. Everything is rosy and golden and all covered in these mists of clouds of imagination. It's so beautiful. And then you get married. Then all the positive override is gone and negative override has come. Do one wrong thing, husband does one wrong thing. Whole day is wrecked. The positive override converts itself to negative override. Everything that looked beautiful first, now everything looks horrible. That's why if you meet a couple who are divorcing, there is so much bitter, acrimonious. The way they talk about each other is you'd think they're worst enemies. How does it happen that two people who are so deeply in love with each other suddenly are now worst enemies? When the person is catering to our demands, everything about him is beautiful. When the person stops catering to our demands, or when real life strikes, everything becomes terrible, unbearable. So we get a blurred picture about that person. When we get attached, fifthly, when we get attached to somebody, that person develops a revulsion towards us. When you are attached to somebody, the person doesn't like it. Typical example is, you go to a child, you pick him up and try to hug him. You see very often what they do, They don't like it. Nobody likes anyone being attached to them. You don't like anyone attached to you. Suppose I call you every day, 7 times a day, what will you say? Why don't you live your life and let me live my life? Somebody getting attached to us, tying themselves to us, we want to break loose, right? You don't want this. What is this kid say nowadays? Give me space. Give me space. What space do you want? Don't interfere in my life. Whenever we get attached to somebody, that person feels a sense of revulsion to us. He throws us out. He doesn't like it. We are very detrimental to the object of our attachment. Another very sad thing in life is that those people who we claim to love, those people who we claim to want to do good for, are the very best you can do for your child is train him to take a no. You don't understand reference to children, at least understand reference to pets. Suppose you didn't say no to your pet for anything, what will you get? Get a Rakshasa in the house. And will that pet be happy? He'll be miserable. Because happiness only comes within the rails of discipline. You throw discipline to the winds, happiness cannot come. It's impossible. So the best gift a parent can give a child is the capacity to take a no. But when you're too attached, you don't know what you're doing. You spoil the lives of the people you're attached to. Okay? Remember how many we did so far? First one was? You can't get it. Second one was? You don't enjoy it. Then? Become unfair to others. Your vision becomes blurred. You become detrimental to the object of your attachment. And sixthly, the object of attachment feels a sense of revulsion towards you. He doesn't like it. Throw them off. When you sense that revulsion in the other person, what happens to you? You get very hurt, very disappointed, very angry, and slowly the negative emotions start building up. It becomes a huge mountain of negative emotion. If it's unrequited love, you see it in the papers. What these boys go and do? They'll throw acid, they'll kill, all sorts of things. When you sense that you have this unrequited love, you can do anything to the object of your so-called attachment, so-called love. You can go to the point of destroying that person. For example, Othello, fatal attraction. Remember fatal attraction? Remember Othello? He killed the most noble Desdemona. On a weird fancy on some big beef. Put out the light and then put out the light. For what? Somebody lied to him. Willing to kill her. That lady who is supposed to love so much is willing to kill her for a supposed infidelity. You can go to the point of destroying the object of attachment, and in this whole process you end up destroying yourself. What happens to Othello afterwards? He killed her, but it results in killing himself. This is how we wreck our lives. There was a very a great painter, Andrea del Sarto. Has anyone heard of him? One of the greatest painters, in line with Raphael and Michelangelo. Nobody has heard of him. You know why? He fell madly in love with Lucretia. Fell in love with Lucretia and did all sorts of things. Robert Browning had written, I can't say very nice poem, really horrible poem. When you read that, that disgust of attachment will come to your heart. What is this man doing? Has he lost it? He has lost it. He stole from the king, he ruined all his opportunities, running behind that stupid Lucretia, and in the end of the poem, she has run off with somebody else. It was like, so you ruin yourself in this bargain. You ruin whatever potential you have, whatever abilities you have. You can't function. What is the use of this? We start this whole process of attachment for what? We start it in the hope of gaining happiness. And all we get through attachment is sorrow after sorrow after sorrow. You all are experienced with life. The remembrance of your life as well as others' lives which you have seen, you will see how this fits into place. How this is happening. So understanding what is going on versus if you had love in your heart, it's a completely different experience. Completely different. You are happy in the beginning, you are happy in the end, and you are independent in the whole journey. It's a completely different way of looking at things. But when you get attached, you are agitated, miserable until you have ruined the other person and yourself. To which you may say, no, I haven't ruined anybody and I am still alright. Fortunately, let the desires get interrupted enough and you will do exactly the same thing. If you read in the newspaper about somebody done something horrible, parents even may be killing their own children. You read something really horrible, you have to say to yourself like an old philosopher said, there but for the grace of God go I. There but for the grace of God go I. What is this grace of God? That my desires have not yet been interrupted so much. People, fortunately around me, are still doing more or less what I want them to do. Let them stop and I will become a monster like anyone that I meet. I do not realize that I am sitting on a time bomb. I do not realize how much poison there is in my system. It's a question of my desires being sufficiently interrupted for this thing to come up. And any one of us, good, decent people, will behave in the worst possible manner. So we must learn the art of loving. Unfortunately, you can't learn the art of loving. Loving is always spontaneous. You can't tell somebody love you. How can you tell somebody? Suppose a boy loves a girl, you can't tell him love that girl. Not possible. You can't say, oh, she's much prettier. Whoever you love, it's a spontaneous emotion. You cannot train yourself to love. Then what can you do? You can't be left with attachment. You cannot train yourself to love. I'm sorry, but you have to develop yourself as a human being. Take to spiritual sadhana. Study Vedanta so you understand the laws of life. And develop, grow up. When you grow up, love will become spontaneous. It's not something you can practice. You cannot practice loving anybody. But when you have grown up to a higher level, it becomes a natural way to live. Okay? So we did what was the problem. We did an analysis of the love and attachment thing. Is it clear, love and attachment? Now let's see how all this relates to action. So far so good? Any questions? Don't ask too many questions, but okay so far? So now how does all this relate to action? Let us look at it from a practical, action-oriented point of view. Every one of us must cultivate love through spiritual sadhana. And I'm not getting into how we're going to cultivate love. For that, you please read the book Vedanta Treatise and grow up. Basically, you have to grow up. But right now, what do? Please understand that however much love we create in our system, however much we understand that I have to be a loving person, I have to be very careful when it comes to action. Just because you love doesn't mean you're expected to express or manifest that affection. Be careful there. Love that we must have for everybody is something of our hearts, not of actions. In other words, suppose you are very inspired and you say, yes, I must love everybody. And you go down, come out of Pempuri, and the first person you meet, you give him a tight hug. You may be okay, that man will collapse. I don't recommend these kind of things. Do not express affection. It is no doubt difficult to start learning to love, but it is 100,000 times more difficult to take love. A common thing is, suppose a husband comes home and he says to his wife, darling, you're such a good wife to me. You have done so much for me. I'm really blessed to have a wife like you. And she turns around and says, I've heard there's a sale going on at Triguvanda's Binge. It's very difficult to give love, but it's much more difficult to take love. So a loving person is very careful how he goes about manifesting, how he goes about demonstrating that affection. There's a story in the scriptures for this. There was a sage who was on his travels, and as he was going, a snake came out ready to bite him. But when it saw that this person was a noble person, it recognized him and he stopped. And the sage understood that this must be the snake people have been warning me about. So the sage told the snake, Beta, you must learn to love your fellow beings. Don't have this hatred in your heart. So the snake was so overwhelmed with the personality of the sage, he really took those words to heart and he said, yes, I've made a mistake all my life, I have to change. Thank you for your words. And he took the blessings of the sage and the sage went away. A fortnight later, the sage was going back to wherever he had come from. And he thought, let me meet my old friend the snake. So he went across to the burrow and he was amazed to see that the snake was all beaten up, lacerated with wounds. So he said, my brother, how did this happen to you? How did you get so badly beaten up? The snake said, Maharaj, as you told me, I cultivated love. But when I loved everybody, all the villagers came and pelted me with all these stones and have brought me to this condition. So the sage said, my poor brother, you little understood what I said. I told you no doubt to love them, but if you see them coming with sticks and stones, why did you not hiss and drive them away? So when you have love in your heart, doesn't mean you keep yourself open to be beaten up by every Tom, Dick and Harry that comes along. Heart is loving, but actions come from the discrimination of your intellect. Do what is right. Do what is appropriate. Do what is necessary. You cannot afford to use that love which is in your heart as a common thing for all things. It's a silly you're dealing with it. In life you have to deal with people, with beings as they are, not as you are. You cannot, if there is a kitten, you can pick it up and play with it. If you go to the zoo, you can't go and pet the tiger. What will the tiger do if you pet it? A nice bite it will take. See, from the point of view of the tiger, this is justified. No? If somebody offered you fresh food, wouldn't you take it? No, fresh food, very good, give they are. You cannot afford to say, I am a very loving person, therefore I will keep the doors of my house open. You will have to lock your cupboards, lock your safe, lock your house, close your windows. Love does not mean that you expose yourself to stupidity. Love is an emotion of the heart. The emotions of the heart should not drive the body's actions. What should drive the body's actions is the thinking, the clarity, the discrimination of the intellect, doing what is necessary and appropriate. So with reference to action, love is not your yardstick for action. Good sense is your yardstick for action. But when it comes to your emotions, how your heart feels, then love is your yardstick. If you can have love in the heart, you are a human being. You cannot have love in your heart, you are a miserable being. That's the only difference. So pure love means what? Pure, anything is pure when it is that alone. So pure love means love alone. What is impure? Means something else has been added. What is the something else which has been added? Me, I. That is why the great Kabira says, Prem gali ati sakli, jame do na saman. जब गुरु था तो मैं नहीं, जब मैं हूँ, जब मैं था तो गुरु नहीं, अब गुरु है सो मैं नहीं. Only one can fit. Prem gali ati sakli. It's a very thin gali. Only one can be there. So in true love, there is no concept of the second. There is no otherness. What is the otherness? My presence. I want you to do this, I want you to do that, you should behave like this, you should behave like this. I am there. True love means I am not there. There is only the beloved. That is what it means to have pure love. My demands, my desires, my attachments, my hopes, my aspirations. In other words, I have been removed. Okay? So that's it. 3 points we have discussed. Number 1, what is the problem? Number 2, what is the theoretical analysis of the problem? And number 3, what is its relationship with action? Anybody has any questions? No questions? All very clear or nothing makes sense?
Regarding actions, how is expectations that we have in our relationship which drive our emotions?
What do you do about expectations? What do you do about expectations? Really, you throw them out of the window. But you find you will not be able to do that. It is impossible. You cannot live your life without expectations. So what you do is, you base your expectations on correct assessment. Today, we do not assess anybody or anything. We do not try and understand what is this person, what is the situation. We don't make any assessment. So since we have no assessment or a wrong assessment, it leads us to make wrong expectations. You had a right assessment. Vedanta Institute, if it declares a function, it will start at that place, at that time, right assessment. So you came at the right time, right place, and the thing started. You had an expectation based on a correct assessment, and therefore, hopefully, you were not disappointed. But if your expectation was incorrect, based on an incorrect assessment, suppose you came here thinking, oh, Vedanta lecture, oh nice, we will listen to lots of stories and things like that, and we will all dance and have fun. You came with wrong assessment, wrong expectation. Therefore, disappointments. So, since we cannot get rid of expectations, the least we can do is have right expectations. And right expectations can only come if it is preceded by right assessment.
What is the meaning of fancy? Shakespeare uses this word fancy-free about Queen Elizabeth. She remained unmarried and she was unaffected by it. Is there any role that fancy plays in this?
Fancy is attachment.
Is equal to attachment.
Except that one becomes non-attached to something because of one's attachment to something else. So actually, see, when we are attached to something, a boy loves a girl, he's attached to that girl. Immediately what happens? Everybody else becomes insipid, boring, terrible. So Queen Elizabeth, she's attached to throne. So what will happen? All men around her will become insipid, boring, terrible. So attachment to any one thing renders all other things insipid, boring. So same thing. Therefore, if you understand it correctly, if you really understood this lecture, answer this one question. Love is equal to
happiness.
Love is equal to love is equal, pure love is equal to detachment. And attachment is equal to hatred. When you say I am attached, you are basically saying I am going to hate you. You don't do what I tell you to do and I am hating you. So attachment is only potential hatred. And true love is pure detachment. People think detached people don't have emotions. They are the only people who have emotions. True love is detachment. Attachment is potential hatred. Anything else, Hans?
Then pure love, true love can only be experienced by someone who self-realized. So we're all not self-realized.
Correct? So we have to get there.
So until then we are doomed to life of potential hatreds.
QAD? Doomed to agitation. In other words, I will get agitated in my relationships because I do not know how to love. So I must raise myself to that level. If I haven't, I will get agitated. When I get agitated, let me understand it carefully. Let me not at least say, you caused my agitation. Because you haven't. If I am not agitated, if I am not attached, nobody in the world can cause me agitation. So let me at least diagnose the problem properly. Let us not do wrong diagnosis. Wrong diagnosis will definitely lead to disaster. Let's get the diagnosis right. If we get the diagnosis right, we will ourselves go out and look for the solution. But that's right. You don't have love. Consequences, suffering. QED. On that rather sad note, we will hand it back before more sad things are said.